Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zach.
And this week we read The Last Olympian, Chapter 19. We Trash the Eternal City.
Yeah, this is a chapter, like, for me, when I read it, I was like, I had to reread it again because, like, man, this is the chapter, isn't it? This is the quintessential Percy Jackson chapter.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it was already happening. I kind of thought that maybe it was going to be like a cliffhanger and next chapter was going to be
a
the
two-parter,
chapter.
you mean, B?
Yeah, or something. Like, it happens. They're there, and then he did, and I guess we're done now. I guess the antagonist is killed.
The funniest thing about this, B, is that, like, I remember reading this chapter the very first time, and I swear on my life that I thought this chapter was much longer, or I felt like it had more, not that it didn't have a lot of weight to it, but I remember, like, reading it and, like, really feeling it.
Right. It's not that long.
No, and that's kind of the interesting thing about it is like, it isn't long, but it has enough weight to it. I'm so used to, again, fantasy books, like when I read The Wheel of Time. Well, and a good example of this is when I read The Wheel of Time when I finished it. The last battle of that is 200 pages, and that's bonkers.
Yeah, no thanks. That's a whole other book.
I think if I remember correctly, people said it's as long as the first Harry Potter book, as the final battle.
Yeeps. Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't that. Honestly, this was a very effective chapter. It did what it needed to do. In some ways, I was like, halfway through reading this, I was annoyed because I was like, oh no, well, it can't be happening now where Luke is going to kill himself / Kronos, but it did. So then I was kind of happy that it worked out that way, because for a second I was getting annoyed, like, oh no, it's going to be the next chapter, they're going to delay it, or something was going to stop them, like, especially sort of in the midst of when they're still fighting with Kronos, and like there's a lot of like, his sword fell, the blade dropped, Annabeth gets hurt, like there's a lot of like, just people keep getting knocked around and just barely not doing the thing. And then I immediately, as soon as Annabeth mentions the thing about the cursed blade, I'm like, oh, right.
Oh, yeah, it's the Deus Ex Machina.
Then, yeah, I mean, is it the Deus Ex Machina?
Well, no, it's like the thing, it's like the villain's undoing is the very thing that he gave the hero.
Yeah, I guess that's more like dramatic irony.
I
don't
guess
know
it
what
would be more like it's Deus Ex Machina in the sense of it's a prediction and it's pretty much a prophecy. It's like, oh, you need these things to happen. And Percy Jackson makes the ultimate choice by giving him the blade.
Well, yeah, like fate swoops in and causes it to happen. It's less like, oh, Percy's really good at battling or whatever, which, I mean, again, it's not even really Percy's battle to fight, which we'll talk a little bit about Rachel and what she said.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to this chapter, what I really enjoyed about it is this is actually a really fun fight scene because I can understand where things are happening because you have spatial awareness. It isn't just like Percy Jackson summons a bunch of water powers and like kicks butt. It's not like that at all, which I really enjoy.
No, it's not at all.
And you know what the funny thing about this is when I was reading this, I had the Zuko moment in Avatar when he's trying to uncover like Sozin, and they're trying to uncover like the secrets of why the Fire Nation killed the Air Nation, and it's like, that's it? That's all of it? There has to be more to this. And there is more to this because, you know, when I'm looking at this chapter, I'm looking at it, I think the hardest thing about this chapter is you have to come to terms with a character committing suicide, pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty dark. In some ways, it's not dissimilar to like the Harry Potter thing of like, you need to die in order to kill the evil in you. It's like, there's definitely like a Horcrux vibe happening here, only in this case, it doesn't seem like he's gonna like be alive again.
Well, the difference though with the Horcrux thing is, if I remember correctly, Voldemort didn't know that Harry was a Horcrux.
It was an accidental Horcrux, but it's like it's a similar kind of thing of like, he is a vessel for the bad guy, so in order for the villain to die, he also has to die, kind of thing. Which it's pretty similar. It's
like the villain's undoing is himself. It's like in a lot of movies where I love a lot of like villain movies where the villain has his ultimate weapon, quote unquote. And by the end of the movie, kills them. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like the laser beam.
That, like you said, there is the suicide element. I mean, in some ways, you could say that that's like similar to Harry Potter, but it's less so because he more like sacrifices himself. In this chapter, there is a literal you could say suicide scene because he does stab himself. So like that's, as far as a children's book, that is pretty dark, even coming from me, someone who's read some dark children's books. But like, you know, taking away all the magic stuff, it is still like a teenager stabbing himself. Like that's really difficult to read.
See, for me, I'm looking at it a little differently because I'm looking at this through the hero's journey, and you can look at it through Luke, and you have your circle. And at the end of it, it's the hero making the final sacrifice and piercing through the veil, which is something that is in the monomyth.
I mean, I understand, like, story-wise why it happens, or even, like, understand it's something different than killing himself, but just, like, on its face, it still is written in a way where it's, like, there's this sad guy who made a lot of bad decisions. So that's what I mean. Yeah,
no. I understand what you're saying. I totally agree with you. Like, it's a very sad thing. It's a very shocking thing because you always think about, like, in these stories that the villain will, you know, either imprison him or like figure out a way to separate Kronos from Luke, like in these ways, like, oh, will he use the scythe to like chop him in half so the Kronos evil bits comes out and the Luke good bits
right,
stay
exactly
in?
Like he'll still like in a different children's book, maybe even in the Harry Potter example we keep going back to, he could have come back. Like, he could have somehow severed his tie with Kronos and killed Kronos.
Well, they do that. That's what happens exactly like in Harry Potter, where he gets the resurrection stone.
Yes, exactly, but then he's resurrected. So yeah, it's like that, but instead of being resurrected, he just dies, and then he even says, oh no, there's like no hope of me surviving. Like, you know, Grover swoops in and says, oh, you know, we have Ambrosia, we could try and fix this, we could save him, which is like such a fascinating turnaround from like, you're the
most vile, evil person.
Yeah, you're a horrible person and you were housing an even more horrible being, and then now you've sort of redeemed yourself in this complicated way. I mean, we'll talk about whether or not Luke redeemed himself. I have complicated feelings about this, honestly.
And that's something that I think we're going to explore, because I feel like, again, there's a lot of things. I feel like this is going to be an episode that's going to be a very, very long episode, so everyone be patient. So B, this chapter kind of starts and everyone's trying to get to Mount Olympus. It is crazy. It's like a video game. There's like quick time events, them hopping on elevators.
Oh yeah, this made me think of, do you know that scene in Toy Story 2 when he's going to Zurg's lair?
Yes, exactly.
And he's
like
jumping on the little like platforms that keep disappearing.
There's also the part where they get into the traffic cones, Percy and the gang.
Yeah, when they have to Frogger their way
across the busy
highway.
Yeah,
I remember that part.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, remember when they have to like jump up and down so the doors open?
Oh yeah, because the doors are pressurized. They all have to jump up and down. Oh man, I love that at Al's Toy Barn. Can we just have an Al's Toy Barn? I'd love to have one. I guess because we don't have Toys R Us now.
I mean, be the Al you wish to see in the world. You'd be better than Al, but
I don't know. I feel like for me, like my ultimate thing is like being like Al, like falling asleep with Cheeto crumbs and Bullseye licking them off my fingers.
Yeah, let's not try to unpack how a toy could eat real food. We don't have time to analyze the mythos of Toy Story. We have to talk about Percy Jackson.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is they get up to Mount Olympus, and this place looks like a meteor went off. Things are like out of place. Things are like people are slaughtered, which is crazy to me. Like that is something they talk about in this. It's
Once again, dark. This is probably the
this is the darkest
chapters
that you'll possibly get is this chapter. I mean, this is like Rick Riordan's like cracks his knuckles, like, let's get real dark now, everybody. My publisher, they say it's A-okay.
Yeah, the grimdark is out for one chapter. I mean, there's been definitely some difficult moments in this series.
But this is like they describe it pretty much. It's like people are like slewing about. And then also like a bunch of statues are like crushed and like slabbed. Yeah.
And yeah, even not just the sort of people are dead, but like there's just like remnants of their clothes and their armor and stuff strewn about. Like there's no chance of even saving those people, you know. Percy's already like Kronos has already like forged his way through Olympus and killed all these minor gods who were like the sort of last standing people trying to defend Olympus, and they were just really like quickly taken care of, and it's just like this weird hopelessness of like, oh well, he's already on the warpath.
B, do you know what the code name is for like if the White House ever gets taken over by a foreign entity?
No.
It's Olympus Has Fallen.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, that's basically it.
That's pretty much quintessentially what has happened. Like Olympus Has Fallen. This is kind of like the what's supposed to be happening here is kind of crazy, and I think it's crazier because we have the old gang kind of back together, where you have Percy Jackson, you have Grover, you have Annabeth, and then you have Thalia, but Thalia kind of gets disposed of in a way of that she takes
she
a
gets
statue for
pinned under a
Annabeth.
statue.
Yeah, she gets pinned underneath a statue that was meant for Annabeth because Hera just has this petty grudge on her. Like
Freaking
squish,
Hera,
splat.
just such a like meddling jerk. Like, we don't even need to deal with you right now. There's other stuff going on.
She is trying to like speak to the Ultra manager. She's supposed to be speaking to the district Uber manager.
Yeah, assistant to the district Uber manager.
Oh yeah, exactly. For some reason, I'm imagining. Have you ever seen the picture of like Super Karen with the Super Karen haircut?
You've definitely sent it to me, so yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Like the Hera statue has like that's what pinned her.
Yeah, she has a weird thing against Annabeth. So I guess Talia's fine because she can't die unless she's in battle, right? So this is just she's inconvenienced, but she's like, you guys can go on without me. So I guess I don't know why that happens, other than so it doesn't complicate the scene by having her involved in the. I don't know.
I think from a writing standpoint, the reason why it's Annabeth Grover and Percy is because in the first book,
Right.
it's Annabeth Grover and Percy.
I see.
Versus
Like
Luke.
it's been narrowed down to the original three. That makes sense.
We've also had the scene already with Thalia where she like kicked Luke right off the cliff.
Right, exactly. We don't need her again to save the day. So I think that that's part of it too. It's like Percy has obviously his own type of imperviousness because of his the Curse of Achilles, and then obviously Talia, because she's a hunter of Artemis, she too is sort of like protected from certain I mean, she can still die in battle, so it's not super helpful when most of the scenarios where you'll die is in battle, but
I'm just imagining if she got crushed, like does like someone come in and say, "Is this a battle scenario? Is this like a rule bendy guide thing?"
right, yeah, like we have to rule whether or not it's a battle scenario. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, well, it technically was during a battle, but
This is what keeps you up at night, right, B?
yeah, I know, like the logistic, like the bureaucratic logistics of this kind of stuff. Like I always think about it.
For me, this is like a D&D decision. Like when a player asks you this question as a DM, I'm supposed to interpret the rules.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's sort of dealer's choice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking that. Like, would
Well,
it
I think it's actually kind of
count?
funny that they have this because it was going after Hera's statue was going after Annabeth, but it pinned Thalia, who was a daughter of Zeus, and she's technically Hera's the wife of Zeus.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
It's funny. For me,
Sort
it's
of
just
ironic.
irony. Yeah, it's irony. So what ends up happening is they make it to the throne room.
I do think the statue was intentional though, because it's a way in which she can be indisposed while also not killed. You know, because she's not like being stabbed or something.
Well, there's a thing as well as like they kind of show in the beginning when they're going up the elevator that she again doesn't like heights. Like that could have been the thing. Like she got stuck in the elevator and like I'll stay behind while you guys keep going.
Right, that could have happened. But no, but they need to get out of the elevator, so that would be more complicated to write, I think.
Well, yeah, or maybe there's enough room for three of them, like Thalia with her armor or something. She's like pinned or something. Like there's ways to write it, but I think the way that Rick Riordan has chose to do it is very well done.
Well, yeah, because I mean, also, I honestly forgot a little bit about the Hera thing, because, like, I don't know. She's
Everything
not...
has to come back and bite you in the
There are a
behind.
lot of antagonists, is all I'm saying. She's sort of like not even a tertiary antagonist.
So what ends up happening is they get it to the throne room, and I love this scene because they only hear is Luke/Kronos going brick by brick, pretty much stone by stone. I told you I'd tear it down.
Yeah, I like how no one's even really there, so he's just doing the weird villain thing of being like, I'm going to yell my manifesto. Like, that's kind of what he's doing.
Yo, dog, you got me monologuing.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing, because, like, literally they haven't even caught up with him, and he's like, brick by brick. It's like, are you talking to Ethan? Are you, like, is this just for you?
No, this is more of a him thing. This is pure, like, imagination in
Yeah.
the way of, like, I finally get to live my fantasy. Like, this is like, you should, like, close the door, man. I can, like, see your evil essence.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe that I got, especially because, like, you have to think about, like, Kronos and how he was in the pits of Tartarus and, like, the weird vindictiveness he has. Like, he's like, finally, I seek revenge on Olympus. Like, everything's coming to fruition. So he's kind of, like, gloating about it. typical kind of villain stuff. He's like very full of himself and, thinks his plan will work and yada yada. I mean, obviously it doesn't, as we've mentioned, but.
And you kind of have to have that stuff because you have to have the villain, quote unquote, almost about to win, but then gets thwarted at the 11th hour.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this for a while. I was pretty sure that he wasn't going to succeed. So it's weird in like children's books when like for the most part you assume that the stakes, even though they can be high as far as like, a character could die or whatever, for the most part, usually it's like you can lose a battle, but you win the war. That's kind of the gist of most of these kinds of books. Again, would have really shocked me if this book series ended with like Kronos succeeding or something. That's like not, something I would expect.
B, this is actually a good time for me to talk about probably the worst possible plot thing when it comes to an ending of a book.
Uh-huh.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
It never happened, or it was a dream where you go back in time and you're stuck in a time loop.
I hate that.
I've read many, many YA books where they do that, so the story will always kind of have like a circular motion to it.
So it'll just endlessly sort of be recursive.
It's a loop. Because I've read...
Yeah, I'm not really into that kind of storytelling.
I'm looking at you, Darren Sean, because 2 of his series pretty much end the exact same way of like... Oh yeah, I'm going to go back in time and none of this ever happened, so these 11, 14 books you just read are pointless. Like, oh, that sucks. Or, I'm going to remake the universe. Oh, that sucks more. Can we just redo everything? Nope, sorry.
Yeah, that would be another ending that would have annoyed me, but it certainly would have annoyed me and surprised me if Kronos was successful. So it's like, I guess the stakes of the story really have to do with how everything pans out and less have to do with what happens. Like, I knew the gist of what was going to happen is Percy kind of learns that he isn't always the hero, that Annabeth learns that, I don't know, her connection to Luke
letting go is the most important thing that she can do.
Everyone like learns their lesson. And ultimately, Kronos is defeated, but along the way, there's a lot of sacrifices and people who are lost and people learn lessons. Like, I guess, you have more than once said on the podcast, like, the journey beats the destination kind of thing. And that's, like, definitely the whole point of this kind of book series where it's like, you're not really reading every book to be like, I wonder if they're going to beat Kronos. Because, like, that's not even really a question.
Yeah, because, like, when it comes to certain things, like, I think the reason why people love the ending of Infinity War is that the villain wins.
Right.
Like, Thanos snaps his fingers and everyone disappears. Like, certain stories, like, I'm not going to get into Game of Thrones because I'm rereading it, but you have these expectations of, like, what you think, like, a fantasy story is going to be. Like, oh, the hero's going to win, but then at the end of the day, he gets his head, like, chopped right off. And it doesn't work like that. Like, that's how, like, stories don't work. But when it comes to YA, you have almost, like, that assurance. Sometimes the author will always kind of ensure that if they're kids, most likely they're going to come out unscathed. Like, look at the Baudelaires. None of them died.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, that's a miracle of that series that not one of them dies. In some ways, it's like there's so many other characters that die that they're like, okay, we'll give you this. We'll give you a break. I mean, none of the main characters die, really, in this. Like, Selena dies, and I guess Luke, because he's the antagonist, that sort of counts.
Well, we still have a couple chapters, don't we?
Yeah, I guess that's, hey, listen.
Don't you dare say that yet.
That's true. But I mean, as far as like the battle and everything is concerned, easily, I mean, Annabeth, Talia, Grover, something could have happened to that. Tyson even, and they all are okay. And that's usually what you've come to expect. I mean, like I said, with Harry Potter, same thing. There are a lot of even secondary characters who die, and then even the main character dies in a sort of sacrificial way but comes back. But as far as like, Hermione, Ron, they're fine.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the most important thing about it is like, even like in a YA book series, like, you either at the end of the book you'll kill off like an A-level character, or you don't kill any of them off, or you kill the villain. And for me, like, I'll read a lot of books where they'll do that. Like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. Oh, the mentor figure is going to die. Oh, the best friend's going to die. Like, there's, like, obviously, like, the joke is, like, I'm about to sign my life insurance policy, and I'm 3 days out of the academy. Like,
yeah.
Who's probably going to die. Like, when it comes to Percy Jackson, I think the closest you look at it is Annabeth probably dying because she gets stabbed, but it's one of those where we've already seen her be injured already in this book. This is just icing on the literary cake of this final battle scene.
Yeah, I don't think Annabeth is gonna die.
We also already had 2 people die in this chapter. We had Ethan, like, get yeeted right off of Olympus.
Right, there is Ethan, that's true. Though he's, like, so not
He's a
main
tertiary
player.
character.
Yeah, at best he's a tertiary character. Like, yes, he's a a toady to the main antagonist, but as far as like his function in the story, even the way he was introduced, I was like, oh, this guy, I don't really care about him immediately. Like, a very minor slight causes him to sort of like swear, revenge
fealty
on
to another
Percy,
person?
even though it's like,
Yeah.
it's so silly. He's like, I swear revenge on you. It's like, all right, I have like other bigger fish to fry, Ethan. I don't care about you. I sort of like almost in my mind see it as a running joke of Ethan showing up and being like, Percy, I hate you. I'll destroy you. And Percy being like, yeah, whatever, yawn. Like, he doesn't even care.
I don't know. Maybe he might survive his fall from Olympus. That's a pretty tall height.
Yeah, maybe not. But it's so funny because before we were recording off mic, you said, oh, 2 characters died this chapter. And I was like, wait, what's the other one? And you're like, Ethan. And I was like, oh, right, that guy. Like, I didn't even remember that Ethan died because it's like...
He's not an important character, which is the sad, funny thing. It's like we've seen him be vaporized.
I'm going to maybe get
already.
into this as I talk about Luke and his sacrifice and what that means as far as his character is concerned. But we can talk about Ethan, and it's sort of similar where I don't know. It just feels so too little too late what Ethan does. It's like, oh, now you've decided to help? Like, okay, but you're like, you have, in the words of John Mulaney, you have the moral backbone of a chocolate eclair. Like, there were many opportunities where you could have helped them and you could have seen Kronos for what he was and seen that you were doing horrible things and essentially trying to like enact genocide and like cause the world to end. But then like very last minute, you think that you can change your mind and then like that's redemption. First of all, his redemption sucks because he tries to stab Kronos and then doesn't even succeed. Like, it's like the most wimpy, stupid way to die because he's like, oh, last minute I changed my allegiance and I'm going to stab Kronos even though I should know that he's like impossible to kill with my like not that great
with my
abilities.
weak noodle arms.
It's never been established that Ethan's that great at fighting. That's why he's like weak-willed and like kind of weak as far as battles are concerned. He stabs him and like it shatters and he falls backwards and like falls off of Olympus and dies. And you're like, oh great. And in the end, we learned nothing. You know what I mean?
Well, in the end, he became a ketchup stain on the great New York floor.
Yeah, like a few weeks later when all this blows over, some guy's gonna be like, hey, what's that over there on the ground? Like, that's what Ethan's gonna be.
When it comes to Whippy, I'm thinking about this right now, and there's actually another example in Harry Potter that I can give that's very similar to this in Deathly Hallows. There is
Malfoy?
one character... No, not Malfoy. There is a character in Harry Potter B who betrays everybody, who brings the villain back, and then saves Harry.
Oh, Snape.
No.
What?
Peter Pettigrew.
Oh, okay, him too. Wow, there are a lot of
Yeah, there's
characters
Peter
like that.
Pettigrew. There's a lot of characters,
There's
but
a lot
Peter
of characters
Pettigrew...
like that in Harry Potter.
Yeah, there's Peter Pettigrew, who is pretty much the Ethan Nakamura.
He's literally a
Percy
weasel, so yeah, I mean, actually not a weasel. He's literally a rat.
He's a rat.
Like,
He's
same
literally a rat, but he's the Ethan Nakamura of Harry Potter. And it's very similar to that thing of like you have like these very tertiary characters that show like a little bit of like redemption and then they just get like backhanded.
Right, yeah, because Malfoy's more like Luke, I guess, so then that makes sense that Peter Pettigrew...
No, I think Luke is more like Snape in that regard.
Okay, yeah, we can't... this doesn't quite map exactly the same way, but I see
No,
what you're
but you
saying.
can't, but... And you know, I'm like one of those people, it's like, I think Snape's a very interesting character. We won't get into it. I don't think we'll ever get into it.
Yeah, let's not try to decide whether his sacrifice was worthy, because I'm sure that there are hot takes from people who, I don't know, have actually read the book, so I don't have any opinion.
Yeah, no, we won't talk about it, because that's a very heated debate, and it is what it is. It actually was one of my college essays was all about this, and it was 14 pages, so I will not talk about that. Maybe I might post it online, but
You should. I want to read it. Wait, can you tell me what your conclusion was? Or do I have to read it?
Oh, if people want to know my hot, spicy take, is that I think that Snape is a very interesting and complex character because it shows kind of like what is right and what is wrong, because there's things that he did that are horrid, but then there's also a lot of things that he did that were good. Like, that kind of was very much the series of unfortunate events thing of it's like good or evil.
Yeah, the tossed salad of vinaigrette of confusion, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Same as with like when it gets to Luke, we'll talk about that because I feel like there's a lot of parallels with the twins of like morality.
Yeah, I have complicated feelings about Luke in a different way than one might have about Snape. And again, he is a jerk as well, but we're talking about a different story. But like,
We're talking about a different
Luke
story,
is complicated because I feel like as far as his character is concerned, he has done more harm than good. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was a double agent in the same way that, like, a character like Snape would be, for instance, where he's like, oh, he was sort of playing both sides and he was manipulating things, but ultimately helped someone. But it's like less like that and more like, oh, well, he was selfish, so he allied himself with someone who was terrible and didn't really care about the consequences until pretty much the last minute.
So we'll get into that very, very soon. Let's get into the other minutia things because that's going to probably be a very big point of talk. And I feel like people be prepared for that because I think we're going to talk about it for a while. But kind of like they get to Mount Olympus and obviously, they have their big confrontation where pretty much Ethan kind of switches sides because Percy and Kronos are starting to go at it, which I like that his scythe turns back into Backbiter. I like that they have like this fight that very much mirrors the first fight we have of Luke versus Percy. And then you have, the part where it's like the big choice is Ethan's like, Cronus is like, hey, Ethan, could you like stab him for me? Could you stab a witch for me, please?
I don't know if this is a spoiler or if this is just, we've determined this already. As far as the prophecy is concerned, Percy is supposed to be making a important choice that's like determines the fate of the world. In this scenario, is the choice that he gives the knife to...
Yes.
Luke. Okay, that's what I thought.
Because that's the choice, because if he were to do it, they probably would have failed. Because he wouldn't have known where the special spot is.
Right, if he tried to do it himself and be the hero, then he wouldn't have known where the spot is and he wouldn't have been able to destroy Luke, Kronos, whatever. But because Luke himself knew it, then he had to trust that it would work out. And again, who else but Annabeth is going to cause this to happen? Like, from the very beginning, Annabeth has been the person on the sidelines being like, psst, Percy, do this thing. You don't know what you're doing. Just listen to me. Like, I find that kind of hilarious that she's always like, hey, listen here, dum-dum. Don't do the thing you think you should do. Do this instead. And even while she's saying that during the battle, he's like, huh, what? I don't get it. Like, oh my God, all she had to do was say it once and I figured it out, my dude, and you're living it.
Well, I think there's more to that because I feel like first she's trying to appeal to Luke and like, okay, he's in there, so maybe we can like work with this and try to figure it out. Right. And then you have the part with like Ethan Nakamura and Kronos where Ethan unfortunately, becomes the real pigeon man of New York City.
No.
And then
that's rough.
Fly kid.
And remember, always wash your berries before you eat them and fly toward the sun.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's flying towards the ground, not the sun.
Yeah, it's not flying, it's falling with style.
Style, yeah. But then you have the situation be where, like, you have Annabeth trying to appease him, and she even, like, gets up close to Kronos, where obviously Kronos, like, stabs her with Annabeth's knife, and this is where, like, she makes a sacrifice of, like, giving Percy enough time in Kronos to see the errors of his way because, again, he's committing, quote-unquote, the worst sin. He's trying to kill his, I guess, love, his Annabeth, and that's what kind of, like, breaks through.
And he does snap out of that for a second. He's like, wait, Annabeth, and then he sees the blood and is like, oh, what have I done? It's like, listen, dude, you've killed a lot of people. Now you have a problem? Like, I don't know. I'm not super impressed with that, like, oh no, the girl I had an unrequited crush on, who I, like, sort of had a brotherly relationship with, is now dying, so now I feel bad about hurting people. Like, okay, that's gross. You should care about murdering everybody, not just, like, the girl you're crushing on.
Well, there's a much different thing between a person that you love and a person that's just kill him. There's, like,
right, I understand that, but it just... I think there's supposed to be a moment of pathos there, but it actually kind of made me roll my eyes.
Oh, yeah, no, it's not done in the best way because obviously you can see all this happening like 30 feet away, like from the bottom of the Empire State Building. Yeah, we got it. But what ends up happening is Luke kind of snaps out of it. Percy is disarmed as well in the situation. He's able to pick up Annabeth's knife and he's holding it towards Luke. And this is kind of like, for me, this is where Percy Jackson it goes from like a YA book to something that's like a higher power almost. Like, this is where I think Percy Jackson becomes one of the best YA books I've ever read in my life. It's this very, very simple scene because it isn't like Luke is like pleading with him. It's more of a question of, okay, here's a situation. What are we going to do with it? And then at the end of the day, he has to give Luke the knife or, they'll lose all hope. Because, again, thematically, the hearth is burning down to pretty much its embers. Which I like. That's a nice touch.
Yeah, just the visual representation of how Olympus is fading. Though the hearth is still there, and there are a couple moments where it has like this weird reaction with the scythe, where it's like burning brighter because it's not compatible or something. I forget exactly the phrasing of it, which I found interesting. And then the scythe ends up getting like to be like burning hot from being in the fire. So that's like sort of Hestia's like
It's her
last
curse.
move.
It's the last
though,
Olympian's final curse.
Yeah, even though that she's supposedly like a lesser god, like she actually helps in this scenario, which I found like a nice touch.
Well, it goes back to, again, Ethan Nakamura. The reason why he did all the quote-unquote bad things is because, the small lesser gods didn't have a seat up on Olympus, and there's no balance to it.
Right, exactly. That's like basically the last thing he was yelling as he fell to his
Which, you know
death.
what? I think that's a very noble cause, because you need to have everyone at the table rather than just, the big pantheon that we all know about.
Like Luke and Ethan also, like, they have similar motivations in that they feel like certain people in this, like, kind of antiquated system have been left behind, right? The demigods are treated as disposable. Certain gods are prioritized over others.
They're almost like second-class citizens or like second-class children in that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're literally treated as disposable. That's like the main backstory of Luke, is that he goes on this quest that in his father's mind, he thinks it's like a good thing of like, oh, I'm giving you a quest so you can be a hero before you inevitably. It's like this weird self-fulfilling prophecy where his dad gave him a quest so that way he could be a hero before he inevitably becomes a villain. But the reason he becomes a villain is because that quest makes him feel so used. You know what I mean?
Well, there's also the thing, it's like, as well as like we look at Hermes' cabin, and like there's a bunch of kids that have never even been claimed because their parents don't care about them.
Right, yeah. I mean, even Luke mentions this as he's dying. He's like, all the unclaimed, me, Ethan, whatever. And it's true, like that that's what's so frustrating, I think, about some of these villains. It's like they have a motivation that's understandable and even somewhat justified. I don't think Kronos is, because he's basically
Well, he's just the epitome of evil. That's what he is.
Yeah, he's just like a fascist. He just like wants to rule everything and kill everyone. Like that, he's bad. Just full stop. I think Luke is complicated, Ethan is complicated. Ultimately speaking, if I were to like come down as a judgment about either of them, I would still say that their behavior isn't justified. You know what I mean? Like I
feel like when it comes to like Ethan's behavior, I feel like the word sympathy shouldn't be used. It should be the word pity, because you should pity him. Like, he did all these things.
I do pity. I feel bad for him for sure. I don't necessarily think that he is like, oh, well, he's redeemed himself. That's like, maybe it's a complicated word, redemption.
Here's the philosophy that I've never really understood, but also I can see why people understand it, is like, does one good deed make you a good person when all you've done your entire life is screw everyone over? Like, I guess it's the idea of like repenting on your deathbed.
Right. It's like when people on their deathbed like make all sorts of statements about, what they believe, and make, and forgive people and apologize for things that they've never apologized before. And I'm trying to think about Luke in this scenario.
Like, I understand, like, when you're having, like, a deathbed confession and you're trying to, like, say your piece. Like, I understand that. I get that. It's, it's a cleansing. We're not going to get into, like, the minutia of that. And I think, I've witnessed it.
Right. I mean, like, I guess it's different if you, like, already felt that way. But I keep thinking about, like, the circumstances of why Luke sacrificed himself.
Well, here's the thing, though. This is the reason why he sacrificed himself. And this is the reason why Mr. Spock sacrificed himself in Wrath of Khan. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It occurred to me more as we were talking about this, where, yes, Luke does something incredibly selfless on one hand, like he does kill himself in order to kill Kronos, and Kronos was going to destroy the world if he was able to sort of ascend to his final form without Luke. But also, guess what? Luke was gonna die anyway. There was no actual choice for Luke. The choice was either he dies and then Kronos like assumes his final form and then completes this like, I don't know, idealized structure that he and Luke had signed up for in the beginning, or Luke dies for the other cause. And it's like, in one way, he gets to be the hero. So, like, in some ways, it's like he's actually doing something better for himself. Because, like, either way, he's dead. In one scenario, he's a hero. In the other one, everyone continues to hate him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, I feel like when we're talking about this, we're talking obviously about the ultimate sacrifice, a person taking their own life for the greater good, which you can see time and time again. A good example of this is in Chernobyl. They needed to turn back on the water system, so they asked people, hey, we need volunteers to turn on the water system, because if we don't have it cooling down the reactor before we can figure out a solution, it will obliterate about 250 miles.
Right, but then it exposes you to radiation if you decide.
You will be dead within like 3 weeks.
Right, got it.
But like in the eyes of like, people in Chernobyl, these people are making the ultimate sacrifice, for the greater good. Like another example of this, if I wanted to give for the sorry about that diatrate, is that in Terminator 2, we have Arnie, sacrificing himself because we've prevented Skynet, but the last thing, like, oh, they still have my chip in my own brain and my hand. We need to get rid of myself so Skynet can be prevented. He has to dip himself into the hot lead, and I cry every time because he gives a thumbs up. And it's terrible. It's awful. But again,
oh, that's where that GIF came from.
That's what, not a GIF. It's a work of art.
Yeah, it's definitely a GIF that I've seen. Where people are giving the thumbs up with the hand.
Yeah, coming out.
Anyway.
But again, it's like we look at this. We look at like Luke's, woes and like, did he make the right sacrifice? It's like, it's the same thing as like the people in Chernobyl. They know what they're getting into. It's up to them. Do they want to save the world or destroy it? Because
yeah, I guess ultimately the only way in which it isn't selfish is that, okay, yes, he's been working so hard towards this goal of destroying Olympus, and then ultimately he has to decide, oh no, I don't want to destroy Olympus anymore. But it's kind of like, am I the only one who feels like that's kind of silly to say that makes him brave? Because it's like, you caused all of this. You helped him.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's like, how do you define bravery, B?
Oh, that's complicated. I mean, yeah, I guess it is brave in the sense that he does something that's difficult to do. That's
Here's
fair.
the thing. It's like, don't try this at home, kids, but try choking yourself. You can't do it. Your body will not let you. Same as how, like, trying to, like, stab yourself, your body will refuse to do it as well.
Yeah, the self-preservation instinct. If you have any self-preservation instinct, yeah, that would probably be difficult to do.
Yeah, and not to say, like, you should do, like, self-harm or anything, but it's, like, one of those things. It's, like, to do all that stuff, it takes, like, the ultimate, you have to do it yourself willingly or it doesn't occur.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the hard thing. It's like, we look at this, we look at, like, is Luke brave? Well, he's making the ultimate sacrifice. That checks off one thing. But here's the thing, though. This is the concern and the conundrum of this is, does all of his actions leading up to that action undo all the actions that he's done? Because if we, like, line them up on, like, pretty much like a chart, because I'm sure there's plenty of charts out there, he has done some of the most horrific, horrible things a human being can possibly do.
And what the sacrifice he makes only helps to undo a lot of the things he helped happen. So I don't really see how that is a redemption arc. Because that's sort of like, okay, imagine if you set a house on fire and then you saved a bunch of people who were in the burning house and then put the fire out. That doesn't change the fact you lit the house on fire. You know what I mean? Like, that actually makes you worse in a way. It's sort of like this weird constructed thing where he caused all this to happen, and it was this, like, self-fulfilling thing of, like, the only way he could become a hero was to mess everything up and then save everyone from the mess he made.
Now, here's the thing, B. This is the catch-22 from this. Does his actions after all this stuff is technically making things better? Because we see in this chapter, all the Olympian gods are working together to defeat Typhon. You have Poseidon losing his own home to pretty much know it's what matters the most. Family. You have Ethan making the ultimate sacrifice because he wants the lesser gods to have a better chance. They're doing all these things like, yes, all the things he's wrong, but does the ends justify the means kind of the philosophy, I guess?
No. Definitely not. Especially because there was never any intent to unify Olympus or make people work together. That might have been the net result, but like, if someone starts a war and that somehow makes people have a sense of camaraderie, you don't then give them credit for making people have a sense of camaraderie. That's just coping with the difficult circumstances. Like, it's not like Luke set out to like fix things, and maybe obviously there's like a weird prophecy that caused this all to happen anyway, but it's sort of like, those are just extraneous results for all of the things that he set in place. And obviously it was him and Kronos, but I don't think Kronos would have gotten very far if it wasn't for Luke. And maybe if there wasn't a Luke, there would have been some other person. There would have been an Ethan. There would have been some other disaffected demigod who like heard Kronos's call and was like, yes, I want to destroy Olympus because they treat us unfairly. And to some extent that makes Olympus a little bit responsible for sort of having a breeding ground for like really alienated children who are willing to murder a bunch of people. Like that probably doesn't reflect very well on Olympus or Camp Half-Blood for that matter.
I think all those points are like really, really good. I think actually to like kind of like sandwich us in as well as like we look at Ethan's, his mom's nemesis. She looks for balance. What Cronus is doing, he's going to destroy everything, piss on the ashes and then make his own new kingdom. And that's kind of the hard thing is you're looking at it from like the anarchist approach of like what anarchy quintessentially is let's tear everything down, just start anew, burn the world down. And it's pretty much like scorched earth policy, leave nothing in its wake. And eventually things will eventually come back together. Though with Luke's sacrifice, is he giving them a second chance or is the whole process going to start all over again? Because Kronos won't probably be dead. He's probably going to go back to Tartarus or...
He's just going to go to Tartarus again. Yeah, that's true. I can't say. And that's like the crazy thing about all this, right? Is like there's something very weird and complicated about the specific mythology of Percy Jackson where everything is an echo of what came before. Heroes die and live in the same way. They go on the same quests and beat the same monsters. Monsters die and then they reform, basically. Like there's just like there's even like the older like monsters that then eventually reappear because of like the whole stirring thing. Like it's just no matter what they do, to some extent there's like this sense that fate and the cycle that they're trapped in will continue to happen no matter what they do.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is like how do you break that wheel? Again, oh my god, I'm about to use Wheel of Time stuff. The wheel keeps weaving and turning. Ages come long ago. Like, I'm about to like go into it. Like even in like Wheel of Time, the main thing is like you have these ages that come and pass.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, it does really open the universe up for like sequels and things because it's like, oh no, everything's just happening again. But I don't know if you would be thrilled to read that book series. Would it just be like sort of an identical echo of the one we just read or something? Or maybe it would be different. Who knows?
I don't know. We have a couple more chapters left of this book. We don't know what's going to happen.
That's true. I'd be interested to see what's going to happen just as far as like the ripple effect, because like what are the monsters going to do? Like they were working for Kronos. Are they still alive? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. The army of the dead is approaching, and once again, as we all know, the dead will always outnumber the living. So who knows what's going to happen with that? I feel like what's happening right now is the whole council is probably going to come together and they're going to come to something because, again, as we see at the ending of this, is that my favorite thing about Percy Jackson is he pretty much doesn't even like, get this garbage out of here with Luke. He's like, get him a shroud. This is a son of Hermes. Like he's going to treat him with as much respect as possible.
Right. So that's how the chapter ends, as he says, we need a shroud for a son of Hermes. And that is a pretty admirable moment, right? Where first of all, Percy hands the knife to Luke, so he trusts him to do the right thing. But then he's like, okay, you get to be the hero in this moment. And even Annabeth says, oh, you're a hero now. You can go to Elysium. And of course, he says that he wants to be reborn, which is kind of like a weird, funny last, I don't know, banter between them where she says, oh, yeah, you always like tried your hardest or something. Like he doesn't want to just resign himself to Elysium.
He wants to go to super heaven.
Basically, yeah.
But it's so the one thing I want to talk about as well when it comes to that is like in his final moments when he's talking, he isn't doing the final like monologue of the person dying where like he's repenting for everything. He's pretty much, he knows he's gonna die.
I mean, he's still standing by his principles, which is the one thing I would respect him for, is that he does say, don't forget the unclaimed, like I said, with him and Ethan and every other person like him. Like that is a fair point. I don't think he went about it in remotely the right way at all. Like he was wrong, but like he still believed those things.
But B, you know what my favorite part about this is?
What?
In the end, Luke got friend zoned. You're like a brother to me.
He really does. I did find that very funny because for a second I was like, I thought she was going to say, yes, I did love you. But she's like, yeah, I loved you like a brother, but like not like that. Which like, yeah, duh, you were older than her. and took care of her. That's kind of
That's
creepy
kinda
if you were
brotherly.
to date. I don't know. There's too she was right. Like it was a brotherly situation. He really kind of took advantage of that. Like just cuz like a girl likes you cuz you like took her under your wing when she was a child and now you have a crush on her. Like that's a separate gross thing even from all the weird like magical fascist stuff that he decided to do later on, but like as far as the way that he treated Annabeth, like that's just like a creepy way to approach a friendship.
Yeah, and it's one of those where, like, even in his final moments, Annabeth finally, she doesn't make the choice of saying "I love you" or like kissing him before he dies. Which for me, I was
really
waiting.
satisfied
I was
about
waiting
that.
for that to happen because it's been a while since I've read this book. So for me, like, I kind of like held my breath a little bit here. But like, isn't that like the moral of like Annabeth's story? She has to let go of her past traumas in this way, and this is how she's doing it. She's saying au revoir.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that. That was like a real nice moment of showing Annabeth's true character. Because, I mean, we've talked on and off about this till we're blue in the face about how sometimes Annabeth acted so dedicated to Luke in a way where I was like, but you're so strong willed. Like, why don't you, you know, I don't know, do things for yourself and not try to prioritize some guy? And in this moment, that's like sort of her triumphantly deciding, oh, yeah, I'm going to say, I don't love this guy. It's not about you. You were like a brother to me. You supported me, but I don't love you. Like that. I don't know. I found that pretty satisfying for her to say that.
For me, I find that to be a much better message than just saying, love is tragic, because we already got that with Selena and Charlie. This is where we get the one where it's like you're looking at Annabeth, and she's gone through hell and back. And this is where it's her kind of like redemption of pretty much saying like, you're like a brother to me, but also I need to let you go because this is going to hurt as much. Like, your death is going to affect me as your death is going to affect yourself, bro.
Yeah, also, I do think that it's kind of a nice message as far as like, because Annabeth has been so, I mean, loyal to Luke, yes, but also just like she had such an affection for him. And for the book to say you can have like a powerful connection to someone and really care about them and what happens to them without it being romantic, which can also sometimes happen in like middle grade or like YA, where it makes like the only type of ultimate relationship is romantic love, and therefore Annabeth must love Luke. And that's sort of like, I mean, that's not just us presuming that as the reader, that's also all this stuff with Percy getting jealous and whatever, but like it's kind of nice for the book to go, no, you could care about a person and it's not about like being in love with them.
See, for me, I think that's a very important message. And like, we get messages all the time about what our favorite ships are and ships and things. It's like, for us, it's like, we'll talk about this blue into our face, but it's like, what makes a relationship? Is it the physical relationship?
Yeah.
The mental relationship? Because you can have people that you're very close with. You feel like they're like brothers.
Yeah, your dynamic can be important without it necessarily being romantic. And that's kind of, it's ironic because Percy does this with Annabeth where he's like, it's Luke all along. He's so handsome and charming. And that's why, and that's why Annabeth was so obsessed with him. But it really wasn't about that at all. And then similarly, Percy was
and
really
she dumped his butt.
Close to Rachel, and ultimately she dumped him, but like that wasn't really romantic either, and that's kind of why they broke up, because she said, oh yeah, our fates aren't intertwined in that way. Like they were close and they were able to bond, but it wasn't romantic either, really. Ultimately, she just felt a friendship, like kinship with him, and I think this is also leading to the fact that because those two relationships weren't romantic, Percy and Annabeth are.
Yeah, it's pretty much like lighting up like the tunnel of love.
Process of elimination.
It's like when you get rid of like the love triangle, I guess this is the love square.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, like you're turning it into two people, you're turning it into a two-way street here. And there's nothing bad about like, having friends and like, again, I'll bring this up again. It's like you can have like sibling relationships with friends. Like you can think of your friends like siblings, because what makes a family? Is it bound by blood or is it bound by who you want to just hang out with? Because I easily can call some of my best friends brothers. Like they're the brothers that I've always wanted. And you can have all that stuff. Like for me, I think in the end, Luke had the right fate compared to like what you would think, like what would happen to him. Like he would just melt into existence and like so on and so forth. And like afterwards they'd all get like ice cream afterwards and like laugh it off, but that's not the case here in Percy Jacksonville.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the whole Annabeth Percy thing works out, because it is kind of funny how just the way it works out is like their whole conflict about whether or not they were going to be in a relationship had to do with these other people who kind of like dispensed of themselves. Like literally Luke kills himself and Rachel becomes a fire. And Percy and Annabeth are, oh, I guess we can date now. It's kind of what happened.
And they're like, so you guys want to go to like Chuck E. Cheese or something now, Annabeth?
Yeah, I don't know if they're a little bit older than Chuck E. Cheese, hopefully.
Oh, got it. They're Dave and Buster's now.
Dave and Buster's, yeah, like a little too old for Chuck E. Cheese, a little too young for Dave and Buster's, actually. That's a rough age to be.
Okay, then it's John's Fantastic Pizza. That's the middle ground right there.
I have never heard of John's Fantastic Pizza. Is that a West Coast thing?
That's probably a West Coast thing, yeah.
Yeah, we just have...
Because Chuck E. Cheese is Kid Casino, Dave and Buster's is Drunk Adult Casino that isn't Vegas, and John's Fantastic Pizza is probably in the middle.
Yeah, Drunk Adult Casino is literally just a casino.
Do you want to know what the name of the next chapter is?
Yeah, the name of the next chapter is Chapter 20, We Win Fabulous Prizes. What? Okay.
Are we about to play like Match Game 22? Or what is this, like Wheel of Fortune? What's behind door number 1?
I have no idea at this point.
Door number 2.
mean...
B, have I asked you what game show you'd love to be on?
Oh, Jeopardy, obviously.
Oh, really? Jeopardy?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would have loved to have been on Press Your Luck.
Oh, no, but that's just luck.
I know.
Or you could figure out the pattern. Do you know that there's this guy who figured out the pattern of Press Your Luck, and then like they thought he was cheating? I mean, in some ways it's not cheating. He just like...
He watched so many tapes.
He just watched so many tapes and figured out like how it worked, and then it was able to win. But
yeah, big bucks, no whammies.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play a game like that. Yeah, or like, Wheel of Fortune or Price is Right. All that stuff is like very much luck based, but I would want to play Jeopardy to see. I mean, the thing about Jeopardy though is I'm like very like flip of the coin as far as how well I'll do. Sometimes I really clear the categories and even get Final Jeopardy when the other contestants don't, and other times I don't know a single thing. It really depends on the categories. Like if it's like sports and religion and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. But if it's like children's literature and food, I'm like, yes, I can do this.
Well, B, you know what game show I'd be really good at? Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple.
I would be the worst at Double Dare.
Nick Arcade. Oh, I'd be great at Double Dare.
Double Dare, you have to like do the physical challenge with the slime and stuff. I don't know if I could handle that.
I don't think I could stack you on my team.
Even Mark Summers couldn't handle that because he also has OCD. Like the whole time he was freaking out about the vats of gack.
As he was in pain. Yeah. It's crazy that's the person that you get.
That's the guy they pick, right? They're like, okay, we're going to pick you. And then there's Howie Mandel also has OCD, so I don't know what it is with game show hosts.
Oh, Howie Mandel. Like, I've been watching, like, I actually read his book. Actually, I've also read Mark Summers' book. They're really good books.
Yeah, maybe I should become a game show host.
Yeah, you could totally do it. Yeah, that's what you should do. It should
actually, fun fact, Mara Wilson also has OCD.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Didn't know that.
What? But doesn't she mention it in her book?
I'm sure she did, and I just glazed over it.
Yeah, I've definitely read articles where she talked about it.
B, I haven't read that book in like 3 or 4 years. So B, you want to read some listener emails?
I sure do. Okay, so we got a few emails this week, and the first one is from Amelia, who says, I was listening to your episode, My Parents Go Commando, and I noticed that Zach said when we go on world tour, he assumed that you will go on world tour at some point. I listen to your podcast while doing online schoolwork, learning French, and writing fan fiction. Your loyal listener, Amelia. You weren't serious about that, I'm sure.
I mean, okay, B, I will say this. Amelia, I will say this. I am an eternal optimist. If we could go on a world tour.
I mean, yeah, it's speak it into existence,
Yeah, I'm going to speak it into existence. B, when I can record my podcast in France with a baguette, I would be so happy.
Yeah. Oh la la. Maybe not now. Maybe now would not be a good time for a world tour. But certainly...
B, what are you talking about? Plane tickets are so cheap. There we go. We'll just do it this way.
If you want to shell out the money for like a bubble so I could be the bubble boy, then maybe I'd consider it.
Well, B, here's the thing though. We're always on a world tour. People listen to us all over the world.
That's true. See, you could just have us arrive in your earbuds with no worry about any sort of international pandemic.
Yes. But thank you so much for that
Yeah, thank you
lovely
so much.
message. Though, I will say this, some things that I'll say are just supposed to be jokes. Like, I'll say the most ludicrous things. Don't take them all with a grain of salt
No,
or pepper.
we're definitely not getting too big for our britches. I'm not expecting a world tour anytime soon, considering we haven't even had a live show yet. So, you got to walk before you run.
The only thing that I've ever wanted to have, though, the one thing is honest, is I'd love to have Rick Riordan on the show for like 5-10 minutes max. That's pretty much all I
mean,
think.
That's a reasonable goal, I think.
That's the reasonable goal. That and also all the other people that do Rick Riordan Presents books as well. I'd love to have them all on our show.
Anyway, I believe you are reading the next email.
Yes, I will. This one is from Samuel. Hi, Zach and B. It's Samuel from Radio Half-Blood Report. I listen to you guys every week when I commute. You always make train/bus rides or long walks interesting. Anyways, I just wanted to disagree with what Zach said in the most recent episode about there not being much set up for Selena being the spy. I actually think Selena was set up to be the spy all the way back in The Sea of Monsters. That book is not only the first book when Selena and Charles Beckendorf make an appearance, it's also the first book when Luke mentions that there's a spy at camp. I think there's a lot more set up in The Last Olympian. It's just hard not to notice. For example, the following excerpt is from chapter 3 of that book. I told him that had happened on The Princess Andromeda, how Kronos had known we were coming, how he'd shown me the silver scythe pendant he'd used to communicate with someone at camp. Selena started to cry again, and Annabeth put her arm around her shoulders. In hindsight, I think Selena's crying because she just remembered that it was her fault Beckendorf died. Anyways, that's just the way I interpreted it. Sorry for the kind of long email. Have a good day, Samuel. Firstly, what I'd like to say is thank you so much, Samuel. If you haven't listened to the Half-Blood Report, it's a really fun podcast. It's another Percy Jackson. I think they actually have like a bunch of the creators of all the Rick Riordan Present books. They had a panel recently. They also got retweeted by like Rick Riordan for a funny meme that they made with all the authors. So keep up the good job there. Now, what I'll say about this, Samuel, is what I was kind of talking about. I actually had to go back and listen to what I said. I was saying more along the lines of there aren't any like clues of like the pendant, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of like it's very what's the best word to put it? It's like very loose in how it's told. I guess it's called the mystery box. If we're going by a J.J. Abrams facet of like you can like fit into all these things with the boxes of like who the spy is, but I think at the end of the day, Selena just was the most obvious pick because it made it into a tragedy because we didn't know all about the relationship between Charlie and Selena until I think book 3 and even the short stories.
Right, and it would make sense that she would be crying because she was sad that Beckendorf died, obviously. So it's more like a retroactive, like, oh, that was foreshadowing, that is a different... I mean, that is really cool that if you read it a second time, you get a different perspective of, like, the reactions of the characters. That's, like, one reason why people reread books. But on the other hand, I don't necessarily think that that's so much a clue as it is just, like, it retroactively makes sense once you already know.
The one thing that I was kind of talking about that, I think I didn't elaborate really well on, I think that might be one of the reasons why you're possibly disagreeing, is that I'm looking at this as Rick Riordan was once a mystery writer, and when it comes to mysteries, like sometimes you'll put in subtle hints or clues, like, oh, Selena's like playing with like a bracelet that looks like a moon, like something that's like, you wouldn't like notice, like you wouldn't think about it until like it's the smoking gun almost. Like I'm thinking about it like if they had set it up more in like the Titan's Curse or the Battle of the Labyrinth in the way of like she plays with something, or like you have those reactions that aren't just external because you can look at them from just Charlie dying. I think that's kind of the hard part that I think Rick Riordan didn't do a good job with that because we knew there was a spy in camp. We've talked about it since I think book 2 and like how you would root out the spy, but it's just one of those where it's like I feel like we got it, but it was like nothing that could be like, oh, if you saw hints throughout the book, you could like allude to it rather than, bam, Selena's it and she's dead now. And that's kind of the hard thing, isn't it? But I respect everyone's opinion when it comes to that stuff. You know, you might actually be right about that stuff. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Maybe because I read a lot of mystery books, I want more out of my mysteries, unfortunately. Maybe that's kind of the hard thing.
It's also really difficult to, like, know the author intent. Like, oh, did he put that there to have, like, the double meaning of her being upset also because she blamed herself? But then she's also grieving, so there's there's already a reason why she'd be crying. It's not like left unexplained, then it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, why was she crying? And then knowing she was the spy makes it make sense. It adds depth to it, but doesn't necessarily mean that's the only explanation. So I don't know. I would have to ask him personally. If we were to interview him, we could say, oh, how early in the series did you plot out that Selena was the spy? Stuff like that.
But we did get one piece of major news this week, and that is that we now know that it's George and Martha Washington that the snakes are named after.
Yes, we did. Ding, ding, ding. We finally got the answer, which I think that was your guess.
That was my guess, yeah.
The thing is, was George and Martha and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, were they named after George and Martha Washington? Because then technically they are named. They're named after the same people in some ways.
You know what, B? You got to go to your room right now because we're not going to have this Schrodinger's cat type of situation. Like, is George and Martha alive or dead in the hearts of America? Oh, no. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Samuel. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to his podcast, go listen to it. It's some really amazing quality stuff. And we always love having more Percy Jackson podcasts because we need more of them in our lives. As much as we have so many Harry Potter podcasts.
That's true. How many are there right now, like active ones? There's at least
4.
3 more than us, right?
Yeah. There's This Damn Podcast, there's Floor 600, there's Demipod, and then the Half-Blood Report. I haven't pulled any notes. If I got any of your names wrong, I'm so sorry. B, do you want to read our next email, please?
Next email is from Deanna. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Hi, Zach and B. I've been binging episodes since October, and it has grown increasingly difficult waiting week by week for a new one with the series ending coming so soon. I've been reading these books since Sea of Monsters came out when I was in elementary school. I don't have any topics to bring up / debate or insightful remarks. I just thought you should know that I once named my Webkinz guinea pig Percy Jackson.
Nice.
So there's that. Call back to you mentioning people naming their guinea pigs that a couple episodes ago. That's all. I can't wait till you finish the series, Deanna. P.S. My dad named me Deanna Troy from Star Trek.
Star Trek: The Next Generation.
You guys would appreciate that also. Wow. When the nerds have grown up and have had kids, that's the life we're living in, I guess.
Deanna, that is so awesome. Hopefully, maybe you're studying psychology. Are you a betazoid?
That would be very fitting.
We'll have to figure out, study my emotions.
I actually, I'm not really familiar with Star Trek, but I'm very happy for you. I do know that we're probably going to run into a lot of Hermiones as those people begin to age.
And Katniss's, there was this old-timey Twitter post that I saw that I just thought about when I read this email, which is the ones school, and you have a bunch of people named after characters from books and stuff, and how crazy that will be. You have your Katnisses, you'll have your Petas, you'll have your for some reason there's also Super Hulock stuff, so you have your Sherlocks,
Edwards, Bellas. Actually, Bella did become a very popular name. It's one of the most popular baby names for a while there.
Bella, no. Oh no, that's terrible. Maybe that's good. I don't know. Do you know where I get my name from? Because I guess I'm calling the kettle black at this point.
I'm not sure, actually.
My name's Zach from the 90s. That's a really popular name in the 90s.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yes. Saved by the Bell, right?
Yeah, I'm named after Zach Morris.
Right.
Which blows my mind. Though I had a friend in high school, B, that looked like Screech. Wholeheartedly looks like Dustin Diamond, and it is crazy to me.
That's weirdly fitting. I was named Bryce because I picked it and I liked it. Fun fact.
Did you find it in a calendar, or was it just something that came to you in a vision?
I looked on baby name websites. I have infamously posted a Facebook message that Sarah sent me years ago now, where I knew I wanted a name that started with a B because obviously I go by B as a nickname. What she proceeded to send me was a bunch of words that began with B that were definitely not names, including Butterbean, Bergen-Belsen, and Birkenstock. So definitely glad I didn't pick those. Oh, Blankly, that was another one.
So this is in my mind, I'm imagining you get caught by someone. What's your name? You start looking for all the objects in the
Yeah, it's like George Glass. Butterbean.
Butterbean. That's a weird name. Okay,
If you look around your room and you think of Bergen-Belsen, then that's pretty dark. I don't know if you have a book on your wall or something, but I hope that that's the reason.
Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but B's original name was Butterbean.
It's true. I was assigned Butterbean at
Yeah,
birth.
that's why they changed it. I mean, I had a friend before they changed their name. They were named Luke. Take a guess what their middle name was. Just a wild guess.
Oh, wait. Skywalker, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mentioned
We've
this
joked
before,
about
Luke
this so
Skywalker.
many times.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Oh my God! Thank you so much, Deanna. That's staying in. Thank you so much, Deanna, for
Yep.
that. That's amazing. Especially Webkins. I remember Webkins. Those things were crazy.
I had a monkey
I had a penguin.
from Webkins. Yeah, my dad, his sister every year, and I don't exactly know why. I guess she like used to call him Monkey Man or something when they were kids. So as a joke, every year for his birthday, she would get him a card with a monkey on it. Which, as it might not surprise you that actually there's probably a million birthday cards with monkeys on it. You never run out of those cards.
Because they go bananas for them?
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I just need to pause for that bad joke. She gave him a Webkins one year of a monkey, and he didn't care about it. He was like, "All right, kids, you can have the stuffed animal," and it was Webkins, so we were able to play the game, and I was very excited. Even though monkeys are scary, it was cute though because it was a Webkins. It didn't look like a real animal.
Oh, so Sarah didn't get that Webkins either. Got it.
Oh no, yeah. Well, also monkeys, the less they look like people, like the less. So she's more afraid of apes, like orangutans and gorillas,
So are ape
things like
overlords?
that. Yeah, basically Planet of the Apes. Any of those creatures really freak her out. The more like lemur-like in behavior and appearance freak her out a little less. You know, like the macaques, things like that. Those are less scary to her.
So hopefully we don't put Sarah into a comatose state by mentioning the M word. So B, I actually have an email. It says hello, and this is from Izzy. Dear Zach and B, it's Izzy. I just emailed you a few times, but I decided to change my name. Previously, Sophia. Warning, this is going to be sappy. You have been warned! I've listened to your podcast weekly, and it makes me feel like I'm a part of a community and people are nerdy as I am. I have autism, and when B pointed out, I realized that, yeah, it seems like Tyson would be a representation of someone lower functioning on the spectrum with autism. Though, when you get into something you really love it and obsess over that thing for months and even years, and these books have been my thing, to have someone who actually is passionate makes me feel like I'm not masking autism term. You and B are what I look forward to every Monday. Sincerely, Izzy. P.S. I hope you know that you've inspired many. Thank you so much, Izzy.
Aw, what a sweet message. I'm getting just a little verklempt over that. That's really sweet. Thank you.
For me, the sweetest thing about that is like knowing that people aren't alone, especially when it comes to like autism. Like I have Asperger's. So like there'll be some times where I'm, have my special interest. There'll be times where like I don't want to do anything or like I don't want people to touch me. But then there's other days where I'm like very extroverted. And I just want to say that like we're not alone. I've met so many people through this podcast and through a lot of other means. Where it's like I when I was younger, I felt like I was alone. But now when I was a kid, I wanted to inspire people. So now I do this podcast, and it's really nice to have these type of opportunities to like bring everyone together in this nice little community. Because for me, that's all I wanted as a kid was all these friends, and now I have so many friends, and it makes me happy. But I think it means the world to both B and I that we can make all these connections with
It's
people
true, you guys
we've
are awesome.
never ever met, but you guys have only heard us through your podcast machines, as they say now. So, B, did we get any iTunes reviews this week?
This week from Lynn, who says, "Love you two, 5 stars. I was surprised to see that an episode dropped today. Commando, quote unquote. Thank you for giving us uninterrupted fun and whimsy during these scary times. Stay safe and well, Zach and B, heart." So yeah, we're lucky in that we record remotely, so none of our recording thus far has been affected by the pandemic happening right now with the COVID-19. We would obviously update if that had any bearing on our, living situations. That would be the only thing that would sort of interrupt us releasing episodes. But as of right now, the way things we have are set up, we should be able to continue releasing episodes on the regular schedule.
Yes, and even through like this kind of like worrying times, we want to give everyone a little laughter in our lives, because I think laughing right now is kind of like one of the most important things. Though, if you cough, please wash your hands and make sure to
or just
cover.
wash your hands in general.
Well, yeah, obviously wash your hands in general, but also if you cough, make sure to use your arm at least. Don't spread it, please. And also, if you're stuck indoors, maybe take up a hobby. Puzzles are a good thing. Reading a book, maybe reading further into Percy Jackson. I've been rereading Game of Thrones, so I'm worrying about Westeros more than I'm worrying about our world right now, because the second that you start to worry about things, that's when the real panic sets in. So guys, let's just have a fun little summer break, but be cautious, be courteous to everyone, and pretty much just stay safe out there.
Yeah, Zach and I had a pretty extended conversation before we started recording, but I think ultimately you should both be responsible but not panicked. I don't want you guys or anyone really to be, struggling mentally or being pessimistic during this time. I know personally I find that hard because I have OCD and anxiety. Everything's very scary right now, but it's a little less scary if you, try to stay connected to people. Obviously, as far as social distancing goes, don't be going out places, but, you can call your friends, you can video chat, you can message them, you can, within reason, you could socialize with some immediate people in your vicinity. Just like, you can do both those things. Take care of your mental health and also your physical health. Okay, so another brief announcement. I don't know how soon this is going to be affecting recording. Like I said, our actual recording is not affected, but my voice might begin to change because I started testosterone on March 6th. So as I keep recording in the coming weeks and months, I might have a weird voice. I might have sort of like a laryngitis-y kind of weird quiet voice for a while there. There might be some strange squeaking like pitchiness that hopefully will go away quickly, or Zach will be able to edit out. But just like letting you guys know, if you like notice any of that, I'm not sick. Hopefully it's just that my voice is changing.
I'm excited for that, B. You know that I'll always support you no matter what you do in your life, and that we're all gonna have you kick ass.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's gonna be really cool to see the change, like awesomely recorded through our podcast. Just I happen to do a weekly voice recording with my friends, so that's kind of cool.
The most exciting part, though, B, is when you come and you're like, "Hi guys, I'm B." Oh wow,
yeah,
I didn't know.
Like that is an entire possibility. Like even in a few months from now. So just a heads up.
But we're always here for you, B, and everyone out there. Be cool about it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I would like if you were cool. Probably if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not a horrible transphobe. But if you are, why are you listening to this podcast? Go away. Just literally pick any other podcast.
Well, B, where can they find you on your social media?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman, and I am on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to tweet at the show, you can tweet at us at halfblood_radio. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphhalfblood@gmail.com. We also have a Patreon/RadioCampHalfBlood, though during this trying times, you don't have to donate if you don't want to. That's
right.
fine.
We totally understand people have been,
affected,
laid off, or they have an interruption of their income. There's all sorts of things going on right now. It's difficult. I know that, for instance, the Maximum Fun Network postponed their pledge drive. They like us understand that maybe paying podcasters might not be your priority right now. It might be, paying for food and rent and that kind of thing. So, obviously take care of yourself.
Other than that, we have t-shirts available at TeePublic. I don't know when those will get there because the postal service is kind of get down for a little bit. So
yeah.
So this is kind of date the show, but that's fine. Well, guys, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
Let's keep staying mortal. See ya.
Bye, guys.